Welcome to His Story on HisStory. My name is Nadia Renner, and today we have Thomas R. Williams joining me to tell his story. I'm so excited to have him. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Are you? I'm so excited to have you. Now, Thomas is the author of Permission to Dream and motivational speaker, former American football linebacker, drafted by Jacksonville Jaguars in 2008 NFL draft, leading him to his 4-year NFL career, and also played for USC.
Yeah.
Accomplishments. That's
I know,
huge.
right?
Yeah. So, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Northern California, a very small town called Vacaville.
How was that? growing up
Oh my gosh. Well, it was interesting nonetheless because it was a predominantly white community,
Okay.
and being biracial, trying to discover my own personal identity,
there? Right.
kind of navigate myself through this world, and then also being involved in a single parent household
Right.
is difficult because you wake up every day, you go to school, and your friends are leaving their houses and then also going home to a two-parent household. And so for me, it was a little difficult trying to navigate through why did I not have that same thing when I went home or when
Right.
I left to go to school.
Yeah, I was reading your book, and you talk a lot about challenges you had during the time from like being biracial. You were getting in trouble a lot. Did you feel you were like misunderstood growing up?
Well, first, I got to clear something up. I did get in trouble a lot, and I
Right.
used to talk a lot in class, and I was a class clown.
Right.
But I tell my mom now that I was just practicing for becoming a motivational speaker, and a public speaker, because I wanted.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, right. I just wanted
sure,
to
why
get a
not?
whole bunch of. I was just getting a whole bunch of practice in early because they say
Right.
it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something. So I just started on my 10,000 hours.
Real early.
Real early. Yeah.
Well, you also talk about, your father being absent during that time. Was that difficult for you? Was that hard?
It was difficult, but I don't know if I could identify it as being difficult then and recognizing it. I know that I used to seek attention,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if that was because Dad wasn't there. Where people would say that, but I don't know if that registered at the time, because for me, I just wanted to be seen. I just wanted to be heard, and I think a lot like all of us, we
Right.
just want that. We want to be acknowledged and recognized. But when I grew up and Dad wasn't there, and I was different just by my hair, my skin tone, it was it was uncomfortable at times because you want to fit in, being in elementary school, being in middle school,
Right.
but you're completely different than most of your peers.
Right. You also talk in your book about a teacher, Mr. Truman, and your mother had a conference with him.
Yeah.
You weren't there, but he told your mother, and I quote from your book, "By the time you're 16, you'll either be a leader in a gang, a drug dealer, or you'll be dead." How did that make you feel? That's crazy.
Yeah, and Mr. Truman is actually not Mr. Truman. He has another name.
Oh, so that's not the
that's
real
not his
teacher.
name. But Mr. Truman knows who he is. But at 12 years old, the only thing you want to do is you want to see your parents smile. You want your parents to
Right.
be proud of you. And seeing domestic violence when I grew up, I wanted to see my mom smile. I wanted to make her proud. And when she came home that day and she looked me in the eyes and she said, you want me to tell you what your 6th grade teacher told me today in parent-teacher conferences? And I just thought it was going to be normal.
Right.
Like, Thomas talks a lot. He's a smart kid. He just doesn't do all of his homework. He play houses around in class. He's a class clown. But this time it was something different. And this time it was something that had to do with not only myself and my actions, but how they affected her, because I saw the tears in her eyes. And so when she said, with her eyes full of tears, she said, your 6th grade teacher told me that by the time you're 16, that you're going to end up a drug dealer, shot, or dead.
Wow.
And at that moment, it was for the first time that I realized that what I do doesn't just affect me. What I do, it really has to do with my family and my family's
Right.
name. And before then, I didn't understand what legacy meant. I didn't understand what being a Williams meant, and I didn't know that what I did, really had my mom walking around town with her head down like my son's in trouble again.
Right.
And I vowed at that moment that not only was I going to do everything I could to see her smile, but I was also going to do everything I possibly could to make sure that Mr. Truman was alive.
Did you ever go back to like check on Mr. Truman or to say, hey, I made it, hey, look at me?
I did, and it's really funny that you asked that because he's never been there when I went back.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, but I sent him a book and I signed it and I told him I was 29 years old,
Right.
Which was obviously 13 years past the time that he had created this whole perception of what I was going to be, and
Right.
I told him thanks for the motivation.
So was he part of the motivation for you?
Absolutely. I think for me at a young age,
Right.
I decided to take everything in and utilize, pain, hurt, fear, anxiety, all of those senses and feelings as motivation.
Right. But before you started playing football, you had another passion or a different passion. It was baseball.
I know.
So how did you start playing baseball?
Oh gosh. So baseball happened for me in 6th grade. My mom she came in my room. I was 6 years old. So I was right in the 1st grade. And my mom came into my room and she said, "How would you like to go to an Oakland A's baseball game?" And I was like, "I want to go." Heck yeah, I want to
Yeah,
go to
of
Oakland.
course.
Absolutely. I watched the guys on TV. And growing up in Northern California, you like the Oakland A's, you like the San Francisco Giants, the 49ers, the
Right.
Oakland Raiders, that whole nine. And we went to the game and we drove from Vacaville all the way to Oakland, which is about a 45-minute drive. And I remember getting there and walking through the stadium and seeing all of the crowd. There's about 40,000 people there, and they were just there to watch 9 defensive players in the field and 1 batter. And I was like, wow, everybody here took time out of their day to come watch these 10 people perform. And I said, I want to do that, right? So
Right.
I told it to myself. And then when I left the game with my mom, we're driving back, I said, "Mom, I figured it out. Like, I figured out what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to do that." And just like any other parent, they just go, "Okay, sounds good, sounds good." I said, "No, Mom, I really want to do that." And so she said, "Okay, all right, I'll listen to you." But I don't think she paid it any attention,
Right.
or ever gave it a second thought. Like, wow, my son has a dream, or my son has something that he wants to do.
Right. Can we talk about how you saved money to get to that game?
Yeah. So growing up, my grandmother, she's gonna kill me for this, saying this, but I'm gonna tell a little bit kind of behind stories. So one of the family activities, I used to live with my grandparents
Right.
all the way up until 1st grade after my
Okay.
parents got divorced. And so one of the activities, we lived in a brand new development in the community, and they were still building houses. We were one of the first houses in the community. And some nights, my grandmother would say, "We're gonna go collect cans." And collect cans means that we take a garbage bag, and then we used to drive throughout the community. When all the workers would leave, construction workers would leave, they leave their bottles and their cans and other things that you could recycle. And so I actually enjoyed it because I'd sit on the hood of my mom's Honda Civic, and it was kind of like an adventure for me. Like, you feel the wind blowing in your face, and you're just like, I own the world, right?
Right.
And we would go and collect cans, and I just hop off the car, hit the street, and just run as fast as I can, and take the cans and put them into the trash bag. And when we would do that, after about 3 or 4 bags, you'd have $20, $40, $60,
Right.
and so that's how we came up with the funds so that we can go to that game.
The reason why I brought that up, it's because I used to do the same thing. My parents wouldn't be involved, but I would do it just so
Yeah.
I can raise money and have money for myself. So
Right.
when I read that in your book, I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. $20 at that, especially at that time, you're like, yeah, I can totally get $20 out. Like bottles, I'm good. I'll definitely do
Right,
that.
5 cents a bottle.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
You just keep adding those
The bigger
up.
ones, the better. Glass,
Right.
even better.
Right.
Nice. So when did you discover? So you discovered that you have a passion for baseball. You want to do that, but then how do you figure? Like, actually, it's not baseball. It's football.
Yeah, so at 6, I just found out that I wanted all of that acknowledgement. I just wanted to be in front of people performing. I didn't
Right.
care what it was because it was just all of those people there watching, you know, the 9 defensive players and the batter, and just cheering when something went right, you know, boom when something went wrong. It was just kind of all that commotion, that excitement that really excited me. And so from then until I got to 9th grade, I played baseball. Like, I was a baseball player. Mom, I'm going to the major leagues. I'm going to be Barry Bonds, Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire, all the top players. And then I was in 8th grade playing in a baseball game, and at the time I was on a traveling baseball team, and we were playing in Oklahoma. And it was one of those trips where, you know, your whole team gets on an airplane and you go with your teammates to a foreign city to hang out there. And we were in a national championship game. And when I was on second base, a guy hit a baseball to right field, and I came around third base and I was turning for home. And when I turned for home, I saw the catcher, who was about 4 feet up the line, and he was trying to block me from scoring.
Right.
And it was just a natural reaction that I was going to lower my shoulder and run into him, and I did that. And when I did it, I actually got called out, and it was kind of like a bittersweet feeling, because I was out, but my soul was so excited to feel that physical contact.
Like if you knew your power at that point.
That's what it was. That's what I was supposed to be doing this whole entire time, because when I was in elementary school, I used to get kicked out of recess because I was too rowdy or too physical or aggressive on the playground.
Right.
And so something that used to get me in so much trouble was now almost being praised and worshiped, because when I walked into the dugout, instead of my coach being upset at me or mad that I thought I was going to be punished, he was actually excited and gave me a high five and said, "Hey, way to play aggressive." And when we flew back home to Vacaville, my mom said, we were doing laundry in the garage, and we would have a lot of talks in the doing laundry, separating the darks from the whites. And my mom said, "Son, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna play football? Are you gonna play baseball? What are you gonna do this first semester of high school?" And I said, "Mom, I think I'm gonna play football." And she was like, "Well, what made you come to that decision?" And I said, "Well, the reason why I came to that decision, because I don't want to be alone for the first semester going into high school.
Right.
All of my friends are going to be playing football throughout the summer, and I want to be a part of something. I want to be a part of the team. I want to be a part of family." And it felt so good for me to have that physical interaction, we'll call it, with the catcher, because that's what I feel like I was really good at, being aggressive.
So now you're a freshman in high school playing football, and you become really good at it, but you start practicing even more and working harder, but you also know that you want to get out of Vacaville.
Yeah.
And you understand what it takes to do that, and that's a scholarship to college, which would be the next step after high school. You put in a lot of work. You talk about this in your book. You put a lot of work in. Your mom comes to the park and hangs out too and works out while you're working out hard. What was your motivation throughout high school, before college, to say, I need that scholarship?
Oh, wow. So for me, you hear parents of your friends talk about college.
Right.
You even see on some of their walls where they'd have certificates or degrees or diplomas from different universities or different programs, and it meant something to their family. And there was something strange, because when I would go home, I didn't see it. And I remember one of my friend's parents saying, his name was Todd. She said, "Todd, the more education you have, the more opportunities you have in life." And so then we would talk, and I'd say, "Todd, what is your mom talking about?" And he'd say, she's talking about college, and what is college? Because to me, it's a foreign language.
Right.
And he said, "Well, after high school, you go to college, and when you go to college, like you get an education, you continue to grow." And I said, "Well, how do you get there?" He said, "Usually you have to pay for it." I said, "Well, what are other options?" And he said, "We get a scholarship." And I said, "Well, what kind of scholarships?" He said, "Academic or athletic." And I was like, "Well, academics, like my grade point average up to that point was like a 2.1, and it wasn't anything to brag about."
Right.
And then I said, "Well, what about athletics?" I said, "If you're really good at sports, then they'll pay for you to go to school." And I said, "Well, I got one or two options, and I'm 100% sure that it's not going to be academics. So maybe, just maybe, athletics will get me an opportunity to play at the next level." And so that's where I put all of my being, all of my energy into. And it only worked out, to be honest with you, because I dedicated my entire self to that.
Nice.